Why is it that the most dangerous person in the room is always the one who says the least? Have you ever noticed that the moment you explain your plans to someone, the fire to achieve them suddenly begins to die? These are not coincidences. They are the symptoms of a psychological law that most people ignore to their own ruin. To master the dark silence strategy, you must first understand that information is the only real currency of power. In every human interaction, from a boardroom negotiation to a casual conversation, there is an invisible scale. On one side is what you know about them. On the other is what they know about you. The person who knows the most while revealing the least is the one who holds the lever. This is called information asymmetry, and it is the foundation of every Machiavellian victory in history. But why is silence so difficult for us? Why does a quiet room feel like a threat? The answer is biological. We are evolved as social animals. For our ancestors, being understood by the tribe was a matter of survival. If the tribe didn't know your intentions, they might view you as a threat. Because of this, our brains are hardwired with a social default, a constant, nagging pressure to leak information. When you sit across from someone and they look at you without speaking, your pulse quickens. Your brain perceives that silence as a vacuum, and nature, especially human nature, abhors a vacuum. You feel a physical pressure in your chest to say something, anything, just to bridge the gap and lower the tension. You crack a joke, you explain your reasoning, or you reveal a secret you promised yourself you'd keep. In that moment, you think you are connecting, but in reality, you are losing, you are leaking. The amateur views silence as a sign of weakness or a lack of knowledge. They believe that by talking, they are asserting dominance. They justify their mistakes, they broadcast their future moves, and they wear their honesty like a badge of honor. Machiavelli would look at such a person and see a servant, not a prince. By speaking too much, you are handing your opponent a map of your insecurities, your triggers, and your boundaries. You are showing them exactly where to strike. This is where the architect separates himself from the crowd. When you practice the dark silence strategy, you are not just being quiet, you are conducting a psychological autopsy on everyone around you. Silence is the ultimate mirror. When you refuse to fill the void, the other person's anxiety begins to rise. To soothe that anxiety, they will start talking. They will offer more information than they ever intended. They will reveal their true price, their hidden fears, and their real intentions. All because they cannot tolerate the weight of your stillness. You aren't forcing them to speak, you are simply stepping back and letting their own ego do the work for you. Think about the biological bribe of speech. Every time you speak to seek validation or to prove your intelligence, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine. You feel a temporary sense of importance. But that dopamine is a trap. It's your ego's way of tricking you into trading your long-term strategic advantage for a short-term feeling of being heard. This is why hustle culture is so loud. It's a community of people addicted to the feeling of progress through talking, rather than the result of action. But the architect knows that a plan revealed is a plan neutralized. In the world of Machiavellian psychology, unpredictability is your greatest defense. If they don't know what you want, they don't know how to stop you. If they don't know what you're thinking, they don't know how to manipulate you. Your silence acts as a filter. It clears the noise and forces others to show their hand. Stop treating your words like cheap pebbles you throw at everyone you meet. Start treating them like gold coins. If people want to know what is inside your mind, make them work for it. And even then, show them only the mask, and keep the architect hidden in the shadows. To understand how silence becomes a weapon of war, we must look at the figure who inspired Machiavelli's most ruthless ideas, Cesare Borgia. There was a time when Borgia faced a crisis that would have destroyed any ordinary man. His own generals, the very men who led his armies, had turned against him in a secret alliance. Their goal was simple: to strip him of his power and take his life. Imagine the suffocating pressure of knowing that the people closest to you are sharpening their blades. Most leaders, when faced with such a betrayal, react with noise. They scream for loyalty, they make public threats, or they rush into a disorganized battle driven by ego and fear. But Borgia was not most leaders. He understood the dark silence. Instead of attacking or demanding an explanation, Borgia became a ghost. He withdrew from the public eye. He stopped issuing orders. He didn't send angry letters or confront the traitors. He simply waited. This silence was not a sign of surrender. It was a psychological siege. By saying nothing, he forced his enemies to guess. Are his armies already moving in the dark? Does he have a secret ally they don't know about? Because they couldn't hear his voice, they began to hear their own fears. The silence created a vacuum of information that drove his enemies toward paranoia. Eventually, when the tension was at its peak, Borgia sent a messenger with a simple, calm invitation. There was no mention of the betrayal, no hint of the knives hidden in the shadows. He invited his rebellious generals to a grand feast for a friendly reconciliation. Because Borgia had remained so quiet for months, his enemies made a fatal mistake. They misread his silence as weakness. They believed he was defeated and desperate for peace. They walked into his palace without their full guard, feeling safe in the presence of a man who seemed to have no voice left. They sat at his table, drank his wine, and laughed at his supposed cowardice. But as the night grew late, the silence returned, and this time it was final. At a pre-arranged signal, the doors were locked. Borgia's loyalists stepped from the shadows. Without a single word of argument, without a public trial, and without a moment's hesitation, the men who had plotted against him were eliminated. Machiavelli, who watched these events unfold, was mesmerized. He realized that Borgia's victory didn't happen when the swords were drawn. It happened months earlier, in the silence. Borgia had practiced what Machiavelli later called simulation and dissimulation, the art of hiding what you are while pretending to be what you are not. In your life, your generals are the people who compete with you, the people who doubt you, and the people who wait for you to fail. When you encounter a setback or a conflict, your instinct will be to defend yourself. You will want to go on social media and tell your side of the story. You will want to argue in the comments or prove your worth to people who have already decided to dislike you. But when you do that, you are giving your enemies the one thing they need to defeat you: certainty. By speaking, you tell them exactly where you are hurt. By explaining, you show them exactly what your next move is. The architect, however, uses the Borgia method. When attacked, he becomes still. When betrayed, he becomes quiet. He understands that a person who is silent is a person who is planning. This is the strategic void. While your rivals are wasting their energy trying to provoke a reaction out of you, you are quietly repositioning. You are gathering resources. You are waiting for the moment when they become overconfident in your silence. Stop barking like a dog that is cornered. Start acting like the predator that doesn't need to growl to be lethal. Let your results be the first time they hear your voice, and by then, let it be too late for them to react. Understanding history is the foundation, but applying it to the modern world requires a rigid framework. You cannot simply stop speaking entirely. That would make you a hermit, not a strategist. The goal is to become an architect, someone who uses silence as a structural tool to build authority. To do that, you must follow the laws of strategic silence. These are the rules that separate those who are used by the system from those who design it. The first law you must master is the 3-second gap. The most powerful tool in a high-stakes conversation is not a clever comeback or a witty insult. It is the pause. Most people respond to questions or provocations instantly, driven by an impulsive, animalistic need to defend their ego or provide an answer. From this moment on, when someone speaks to you, especially if they are trying to put you on the spot, wait exactly 3 seconds before you utter a single syllable. This gap accomplishes 2 things. First, it demonstrates that you are in total control of your nervous system. You are not reacting, you are choosing. Second, it creates an unbearable psychological pressure for the other person. They begin to second-guess themselves. They wonder if they said something foolish, or if you know something they don't. You have shifted the burden of proof from yourself onto them without saying a word. Once you have mastered the pause, you must learn the art of selective honesty. Machiavelli taught that the most effective leader must be a great simulator. This doesn't mean you should be a pathological liar. Lies are messy, hard to track, and eventually lead to your downfall. Instead, use silence to practice selective honesty. If you are asked about your plans or your progress, reveal one small, unimportant truth, something that sounds significant but costs you nothing in terms of strategy. Then go silent. Because you shared a truth, people will instinctively assume you have shared your whole heart. In reality, you have only shown them the porch of a very large, complex house. Use the truth as a distraction to protect your real intentions. While they are busy analyzing the truth you gave them, you are free to work on your real goals in the shadows. This leads directly into the third principle, the no without justification. Watch how a weak person says no. They apologize. They give 3 different reasons why they can't do it. They try to manage the other person's feelings because they are afraid of the silence that follows a rejection. This is a massive leak of power. When you justify your decisions, you are essentially asking for permission to have a boundary. The architect understands that no is a complete sentence. When you decline an invitation, a request, or a bad deal, say it firmly and then stop. Let the silence hang in the air like a heavy weight. By refusing to justify yourself, you communicate that your time and your logic are not up for debate. This builds a wall of respect that no amount of shouting or arguing could ever achieve. People don't respect those who explain. They respect those who decide. Furthermore, silence is your primary diagnostic tool. When you are quiet, your brain is no longer busy processing what to say next or how to look smart. This frees up your mental energy to observe the leaks in everyone else. Most people are so desperate to be heard that they will tell you exactly how to defeat them, what their price is, and where their insecurities lie. If you simply give them enough silence to do so, listen to the tone of their voice when they are trying to impress you. Watch the way their eyes move when they mention a specific rival. In the kingdom of the loud, the silent person is the only one who actually has a map of the terrain. You aren't just listening to their words, you are listening to what their words are trying to hide. Finally, you must build what engineers call a black box identity. This is a system where you can see what goes in and what comes out, but you have no idea how it works inside. This is how you must present yourself to the world. If people can predict your reactions, they can manipulate you. If they know exactly what makes you angry or what makes you happy, they own you. By maintaining a baseline of calm, strategic silence, you become an anomaly. You become a mystery. And human beings are biologically hardwired to respect, fear, and be obsessed with what they cannot fully understand. Do not be an open book. Open books are read once and then left on a dusty shelf. Be a locked vault. Let people wonder what is inside. Let them project their own fears and respect onto your silence. These laws are not suggestions, they are the new boundaries of your reality. Every time you feel the urge to speak just to fit in or to be liked, remember that you are voluntarily handing over the keys to your kingdom. The world wants you to be loud because a loud person is easy to track and easy to manage. But the silent person, they are the ones who move the pieces while everyone else is still busy arguing over the rules. It is easy to imagine a Renaissance prince using silence to conquer cities. But how does the architect apply these forbidden truths to a modern office, a business negotiation, or a crowded social event? The terrain has changed, but the human psyche remains the same. In the modern world, noise is everywhere. We are constantly pressured to reply to messages instantly, to post our every thought on social media, and to fill every second of a meeting with input. The modern world is a loud, chaotic theater, and most people are nothing more than background actors competing for a moment of attention. To stand above this, you must apply silence in the spaces where others are most desperate to be heard. Consider the professional negotiation. Most people enter a deal with a script of arguments, trying to overwhelm the other party with logic and words. But the architect knows that the person who speaks first in a negotiation usually sets the limit on their own success. When an offer is made to you, do not counter it immediately. Do not explain why it is too low or why you deserve more. Simply look at the other person and remain silent. Count to 5 in your head. In those 5 seconds, the other person's brain will begin to spiral. They will assume their offer was insulting. They will begin to feel the need to justify it, and in that justification, they will reveal their true bottom line. They might even raise the offer themselves before you've even opened your mouth. This is the power of the strategic void. By refusing to react, you force them to negotiate against themselves. This same principle applies to your social reputation and your status within a group. There is a psychological phenomenon where we attribute higher intelligence and higher status to those who speak less, but with more impact. When you are in a group discussion, let the others compete for the floor. Let them interrupt each other. Let them argue over trivial details, and let them exhaust their energy trying to be the funniest or the smartest. While they are performing, you are collecting data. When you finally do speak, perhaps only once or twice in an hour, your words will carry the weight of a judge's gavel. Because you have been silent, everyone will stop to listen. You have created a scarcity of your voice, and scarcity always creates value. If you speak all the time, your words are like salt in the ocean, everywhere and meaningless. If you speak rarely, your words are like gold, precious and sought after. Even in your digital life, silence is a weapon. We live in an age of instant accessibility. People expect a reply to a text within minutes. By choosing when and how you respond, you are training people on how to value your time. If you respond to every ping instantly, you are telling the world that your focus is cheap and your time is not your own. But when you master the digital silence, when you leave a gap between a message and your response, you communicate that you are a person of deep work and high priority. You become the person who is busy with the architecture of their life, not someone waiting for instructions. Furthermore, silence allows you to handle conflict without ever losing your dignity. When someone insults you or tries to bait you into an argument, they are looking for a specific reaction. They want you to get angry, to get defensive, or to stoop to their level. If you give them that reaction, you have given them power over you. But if you meet an insult with a calm, steady gaze and total silence, you have effectively neutralized them. You have shown them that their opinion of you is so insignificant that it doesn't even warrant a reply. There is no greater insult than being ignored. Silence in the face of hostility doesn't make you a victim. It makes you the predator who is deciding whether or not the prey is even worth the effort. It makes the attacker look small, loud, and out of control, while you remain the immovable object. The goal of the modern architect is to be a person of high signal and low noise. Most people are high noise and low signal. They talk much but say nothing. You must reverse this. Every time you are tempted to join the chorus of the loud, ask yourself, is this word going to increase my leverage? Or am I just leaking energy? If the answer isn't clear, choose the dark silence. Let the world scream into the void while you quietly build your empire in the quiet spaces they are too afraid to inhabit. Beyond the games of power and the social strategies lies a deeper, more profound benefit of the dark silence. It is the mastery of the self. To truly become the architect, you must understand that the greatest enemy you will ever face is not a rival or a traitor. It is your own biology. We are born with a brain that is addicted to external validation. Every time you share a secret, brag about a success, or win a petty argument, your brain is flooded with dopamine. This chemical hit feels like progress, but it is a biological illusion. It is the fool's gold of the human psyche. Most people spend their entire lives chasing this cheap dopamine. They are slaves to their impulses, reacting to every notification, every insult, and every urge to be noticed. But the architect has learned to starve the ego to feed the soul. When you consciously choose silence, you are performing a form of high-level neurological training. You are strengthening the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic, long-term planning, and emotional regulation, while quieting the amygdala, the primitive center of fear and reaction. This internal silence creates a state of unshakable presence. While the world around you is in a constant state of emotional fluctuation, you remain a fixed point. You start to notice things that others miss because their minds are too busy rehearsing what to say next. You see the subtle shifts in the room, the hidden tensions, and the opportunities that only reveal themselves in the quiet. You begin to operate on a different frequency. This leads to the final realization of the Machiavellian mind. Silence is the ultimate form of protection for your vision. There is a deep psychological reason why you should never tell people your greatest goals. When you announce your intentions, your brain receives the satisfaction of the goal without having done the work. The social reality of being seen as an achiever trickles into your mind, and the hunger to actually achieve the goal starts to dissipate. This is why so many people talk about their dreams, but so few ever build them. The architect does the opposite. He works in total, crushing silence. He builds his empire in the shadows, far away from the prying eyes and the draining opinions of the masses. By the time the world finally hears his voice, it is not because he is talking about what he is going to do. It is because he has already done it. His success is the only statement he needs to make. As we close this exploration into the dark silence strategy, you must make a choice. You can go back to being a participant in the noise, a tool used by those who understand these laws. You can continue to leak your energy, your plans, and your power to anyone who will listen. Or you can step into the role of the architect. You can start treating your words as the precious resources they are. You can embrace the 3-second gap, the power of the no, without explanation, and the strategic void of the black box. Remember, Zarian doesn't just watch the game, he designs the board. And the first step to designing anything of lasting value is to quiet the noise so you can finally hear the truth. Your silence is not a retreat. It is not a sign of fear. It is the sound of a mind that has finally found its center. It is the calm before the storm that you are about to create. From this moment on, let your presence be felt, but your thoughts be hidden. Let your actions be visible, but your motives be a mystery. The world belongs to those who have the discipline to stay quiet when everyone else is screaming for attention. The door to the inner circle is open, but only for those who know how to enter in total silence. The true measure of a man's power is not found in the volume of his voice, but in the strength of his restraint. We live in a world that is obsessed with being seen and heard, but the most influential forces in the universe are the ones that work in total, absolute silence. Gravity has no voice, yet it holds the planets in their orbit. The deep ocean is silent, yet it crushes anything that dares to enter its depths without preparation. The moral of the dark silence strategy is simple, but profound: control your tongue, or your tongue will control you.